I'd like to call this meeting of the Northwest Local School District Board of Education to order. The first item on the agenda is to appoint a treasurer pro tem. Mr. Detzel, I'd like to appoint you treasurer pro tem for this meeting.
Can you go back on?
I don't know. Okay, let's see if it'll do that. There it is. You should be on item 1. So 1.1. I'm on 1.1 on my screen.
Okay.
We can. Do you need me to go back, or can you?
No, I'll just make sure that I address it.
Okay. Our next item is roll call. Chris, if you would call roll, please.
Mr. Netzel? Here. Mrs. Netzel? Here. Mr. Harlow?
Here.
Mr. Heath?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here. If you'd all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next item is approval of minutes. Dr. Jackson.
You have the minutes from September 22nd. The treasurer and superintendent recommend the Board of Education approve the minutes as listed.
So moved. Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Chris? The motion carries 5-0. Our next item is a special presentation, Dr. Jackson.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Mr. Colin Clymer, principal at Colerain Elementary, and he will present a eulogy for Missy Steinmetz.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, I would like to honor Melissa Steinmetz. Missy was a contracted employee of the Northwest Local School District since the year 2000. Mrs. Steinmetz was an office assistant at Colerain Elementary School since July 6, 2009. Prior to this position, Missy worked for 2 years in the Central Enrollment Center, and prior to that, she was office assistant and recess monitor at Vivas Elementary. Missy Steinmetz passed away after a long and courageous 3.5-year battle with ovarian cancer. Mrs. Amy Readiness, a teacher at Colerain Elementary, said, "Missy was unselfish throughout her battle with cancer. She never once stopped smiling, caring, or being there for all of us at Colerain." Co-workers admired Missy for her kind spirit and toughness. Mary Beth McFeeters, a friend and co-worker of Missy's, said, "I am a better person for having known Missy. She taught me to be strong, to care for others first, and to have compassion for each individual with respect to their weaknesses and battles that they may be fighting." Known to parents and students as a kind and caring person, Mrs. Steinmetz touched the lives of many students and the parents that she came into contact with daily. One parent, Mrs. Carol Fox, said, "I watched her interact with the students. She remembered their names and had something nice to say to each one. She was very nice to my son. She reached out to him after his diagnosis. Mrs. Steinmetz made him feel like he wasn't alone in his fight. She was a very kind and compassionate person." Missy was born in Cincinnati on September the 11th, 1966. She attended Reading High School, where she was a wrestleette for the Blue Devil wrestling team. Missy graduated from Reading High School as one of the top students in her class. She went on to take a few classes at the University of Cincinnati. Missy married her husband Kent on August 25th, 1990. Together, she and Kent raised 3 wonderful children that are all graduates of Northwest High School. Their son, Nick, is currently employed at Evercoat in Blue Ash. Nick also provided Missy and Kent with their first grandchild, 9-month-old Jack, who Missy absolutely loved spending time with and couldn't be prouder of. Missy had 2 daughters, Jennifer and Christina. Jennifer is in her second year of teaching middle school for the Wilmington City School District, and Christina is an RN at St. Elizabeth Hospital in Northern Kentucky. Missy enjoyed many hobbies in her free time. She enjoyed traveling, crafting, and collecting Longaberger baskets, and she even visited the Longaberger plant in Central Ohio on a couple of occasions. Missy impacted everyone that she came into contact with. Her courage and toughness inspired many, and her fight against cancer was remarkable. Missy was not only a wonderful employee, but more importantly, a friend. She was a valuable member of the Northwest community and will forever be a member of the Colerain Elementary family. Thank you.
And thank you for a very nice eulogy, and you have the friends and family have the sympathy of the board. Thank you. Our next item is a legislative update. Mr. Harlow?
Yes, the House Rules Committee in Columbus has not had meetings on Common Core since we last had our meeting, but next Tuesday, October 14th, they are scheduled to hold meetings to allow teachers who support the bill, i.e. favor repeal, testimony. There have been about 5 hearings on this already, and it looks like the bill will not come up for a vote until after the elections next month. And if it does come up then passage in the Senate is yet another hurdle. So at this point, I'm saying it's not going to pass in this legislative session. It may, of course, be brought up next January when the next General Assembly is convened. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Harlow. Our next item is our Butler Tech update. Mr. Detzel?
Yeah, Dan, just a reminder that our all boards meeting is October 14th. That's our next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew, did everybody RSVP?
Yes, I sent that up to the Butler Tech Secretary on that.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Detzel. Our next item is a principal's report. Dr. Jackson.
I'd like to introduce Mrs. Susan Smith, a principal at Northwest High School, and she'll give her building improvement plan report.
Good evening. I think I know everybody here. My name is Susan Smith, principal at Northwest High School. And part of what I wanted to share with you guys this evening was the implementation of professional learning communities at Northwest High School, something that when I started last year there, I implemented and connects with my building improvement plan and something that we're really proud of that we put into place at the beginning of last year. There we go. So in addition to the teacher-based teams, which you guys have heard a lot about in the last year, which are still going strong and doing really well in our school, which is where people of the same content, same curriculum meet to discuss data from the assessments that they give in their classrooms. We implemented PLCs, or professional learning communities, for teachers to replace our one meeting a month faculty meetings that used to look like this, that you can see there, where everyone is sleeping and the one person in the front is talking, which was generally me, giving things that we could have read on email or reading to them from worksheets and handouts and things like that. So we decided that we needed to implement something where teachers would be active, it would help them grow as professionals, and that would help our school in some way. So that when you say, hey, we're going to start this committee about RTI, for example, you have the same 5 teachers who would volunteer for everything are the 5 people who would volunteer for that committee. So in order to get more teachers involved and to have everybody be a part of something that's improving our school, we implemented PLCs. And I have a quote here from 2 very important educational researchers, Dufour and Marzano. Rick Dufour is kind of the leader on PLCs, and he talks about how important it is for teachers to have time to collaborate with one another. And Marzano, which you guys have heard a lot about, is our leading researcher on instructional strategies, and we adopted his strategies with our teacher evaluation system last year and eye observation. So the quote is that one of the best strategies for improving schools is developing the collective capacity of educators to function as members of a PLC. And it's a concept based on the premise that if students are going to learn at higher levels, processes must be in place to make sure there's ongoing job-embedded learning of the adults who serve them. And I think a key part to that is that it's job-embedded. So again, not asking teachers to give up more time or to be on extra committees, but using the time that's already built into their contract to have them work together to improve student achievement. So we chose 5 things as a school that we wanted to work on. So there's 5 different PLCs at Northwest High School, and the teachers got to choose which of those 5 things they wanted to work on, which of those 5 groups they wanted to be a part of. But all of the groups impact the school in a positive way, are focused on student achievement, and are linked to some sort of data. So it's not just, well, this sounds like a good committee and this is fun, that there's an accountability piece to it as well. And so we monitor what we do instead of just saying we have these committees and they're working. Let's have some data to back that up and show that they're working. These are the 5 different PLC groups that we have, and some of these have subcommittees to them. So for example, college and career readiness might be divided into smaller sections so that each teacher is working on something specific that would fall under the umbrella of college and career readiness. We have instructional practices, Marzano strategies. We have a PRIDE PLC, technology and assessment, and then response to intervention. I'm going to kind of go through each of those and let you know a little bit more about them. First one being college and career readiness. So this group is in charge of obviously making sure that our students are college and career ready through some of the things that we've implemented, and they're listed here. So in September, we have a testing day, and the seniors don't take a test on that day. We have a college fair or a college day for them so that they can hear from different universities in the area. We have military representation on those days. We have 2-year schools, 4-year schools, in-state, out-of-state. This year we had 14 different presenters that came to Northwest High School that morning, and the seniors got to choose. They went to 4 different rotations and got to decide, I wanted to hear from UC, I wanted to hear from Miami Hamilton, I might have wanted to hear what the Navy was talking about that day. And then our counselors ran 2 sessions in computer labs where they could sit down and register for the ACT right there, and also get on and fill out the Common App. So some students elected to do that and had the counselor in the room with them to kind of guide them through those processes. And that might be a student who had started an application or who's never applied for a college or who's registered and taken the ACT or never done that before, but the guidance counselors were able to work with the kids that day. They might not have internet access at home, so that gave them the opportunity to do that. So that was in September. This group's also responsible for Career Day, which we have in December, where we have speakers from all different fields come into school and talk to our kids about opportunities that are available in that field for employment. And then we're looking to do something with our juniors in April so that they're not waiting till senior year to start making some of these decisions. We can use our testing date in April to maybe have juniors go visit college campuses or to have some sort of mini college fair for juniors in the spring. So they go into senior year with a plan. This group is also responsible for extended advisory activities twice a month, and I won't read you those, but we have, on the days when we have early release, we also have extended advisory. So our students are with their advisory teachers for an extra 20 minutes that day, and that we're using that time to implement some of the things that don't just fit into the regular curriculum. So the math teacher doesn't have time to go over FAFSA. This is where the advisory teacher would step in and do some of these things with students on our extended advisory days. This group also was interested in implementing an AP enrichment bell, and they proposed that to me last year. We put that in place for this year. So I have 4 AP teachers who are rotating through with a group of students who are in honors and AP courses, making sure that they're getting the test-taking skills that they need to perform better on AP tests. And that came out of this group because they were looking at our AP scores, were not where they should be, and maybe those kids needed more time to practice more study skills and in an enrichment bell. So we started that this year, and like I said, that's a collaboration among a teacher in each content area because, the AP Calculus teacher might not be able to help with the AP Lit test. So there's 4 different core area teachers in the room helping some of our top performing students with improving their AP scores. And the data that the College and Career Readiness Group is using is listed there. So we're using our 5-year survey data from alumni who are 5 years out of school, our current ACT and SAT data, the senior survey that students fill out right before graduation, and then we're doing some of our own building surveys. For example, the kids filled out, what colleges do you want to see come present to you? What careers are you interested in? So that we bring in the right groups and the right people. If the kids aren't interested in them, it's not going to help anybody. So we survey our students often to get their input on what they want to see. And then this group will look at the new Ohio graduation requirements and how we're going to implement those. Our second PLC group is our technology and assessment group, and we'd be remiss if we didn't give teachers more training on all of the technology that's out there. And then this group becomes the leaders on technology. So it's a train the trainer model. They learn all of the functions and great new apps that are out there or great new programs, and then they in turn present during our in-service and early release time to the other teachers. So we're kind of growing our own leaders in that regard, and these are just some of the things that they have done PD on in the past and are working to implement moving forward as well, because as you know, new things are always coming out. So they're kind of the ones who are keeping us current in terms of newest technology that teachers can use. And we connected assessment with technology because so many of the new standardized tests are going to be online, so we connected those two things together for this PLC. This group's also looking at how are we going to get all this testing done, what's going to be the logistics involved with it. So last year implementing the MAP testing, implementing SLOs. This year looking at how are we going to get all the end of course done, what is that going to look like for a student, and then how are we going to use the data we get from that, how are we going to utilize Think8 to pull student reports that are going to help us get better with scores on some of these tests. And then I added, still keeping in mind that the OGT is still here, at least for this year, and making sure that our kids are ready for those tests as well. Our third PLC is Instructional Practices, and this group is in charge of looking at all of the Marzano strategies that are part of our eye observation, again, our teacher evaluation system. So this group works, and there's subcommittees within this group to kind of look at all of the different elements and strategies, because there are 41 of them, so it's kind of overwhelming for teachers. And same with the technology PLC, this group is in charge of creating PD for other teachers. So they become the teacher leaders in terms of the instructional strategies, what are best practices, so that teachers can learn from each other. And the one neat thing is they created a wiki so that you could house great lesson examples in one spot. So if I'm a teacher and I really want to do something on similarities and differences, I can go to this wiki and pull off a form or a worksheet or a handout or a PowerPoint that another teacher's already used, so I'm not starting from scratch, and implement that in my classroom. So we're kind of housing all of our great ideas in one place on this wiki, and every teacher in the building has access to it. Oops. And the data we're using this for this PLC are reports that we can pull from eye observation, so we can see that no one in our building scored applying or innovating on certain elements and say, okay, that's an area where we're weak as a staff and we need to go through and have more PD about that. And then we look at research-based strategies. What's going to be the highest academic gain for our students? So this year we chose 2 different elements that we're focusing on. The district chose for us tracking student progress, so we're going to have a lot of PD about that. And then the building goal, as I just mentioned, was similarities and differences, because research has shown if kids are able to use that and teachers can implement that well, that you have a very high academic gain. So we're going to focus on that as a building this year. And this PLC group's primarily responsible for implementing strategies involving that element. Our fourth PLC is response to intervention, and we didn't initially have this as a PLC at the beginning of last year, but we added it because so many teachers felt we needed something in place that would be a building-wide response to intervention system. And so halfway through the year we kind of formed this, and it spun out from another PLC, and has gone really well. They designed the whole system themselves, just get everybody on the same page, and RTI is to help those students who are struggling academically or behaviorally, and there's a system to track them. So we can see why they're not doing well, and we can put some systems, some interventions into place to help them kind of get back on track. And so our teachers are in charge of the Tier 1 interventions, and then counselors, teachers, and administrators work with the parents and the student for some more deep interventions if it's not just, oh, he can't study for tests, if there's some deeper seated reasons why a student's not doing well in school. And we have a formal tracking system for that. Here's an example of one of the forms that we're using with RTI, and there's some, it's hard to see, I apologize. There's some points of discussion for the student, or for the teacher to use with students, and the teachers can fill this out and say, this kid is definitely struggling in my class. Here's some things I've seen that are going on with this student, and then we can start the process from there. This is on students who are on IEPs, not on IEPs, in honors classes, not in honors classes. RTI is for any student in the building who's struggling. And that might be a pattern year to year, or that might be something that's new that started this year, and we got to find out what's going on with that kid. This is basically to make sure no kid is falling through the cracks. There's a reason that he's not doing well or she's not doing well, and we need to figure out what it is. And again, this is hard to see, but the teacher it's very simple for the teacher to fill out. They go through and say, are there some economic factors? Is there something at home that's going on? Is it something in class? Is it maybe there's some language barrier issues? Is there a cultural issue going on? Just so we can help identify what the root of the problem is and come up with some solutions to help our students. Our last PLC is our PRIDE PLC, and this was in place when I got there. I'm not going to take any credit for it. This is a great program that was based on research regarding positive behavior support systems and rewarding students for adhering to the rules, for creating a positive learning environment in school. And I listed here just some of the things that this group has been in charge of in the past. And these are all things that we take time out of our daily grind to recognize kids who do well and to reward students who are doing what we ask of them, who might not be rewarded otherwise. So for example, our Outstanding Nights Breakfast, teachers can nominate anybody. So it doesn't have to be the student who wins every single award every time and is always recognized. It might be a kid who started off in your class not doing well and who turned it around. We work hard to make sure that we take time, like I said, to recognize all students for all of the things that they're doing well. That's really important. And for those kids who are extrinsically motivated, this really helps. Sorry. Oh, there we go. This is the board that's in the front of the school that my art teacher put together, just showing kids in our school colors being excited. That's right when you walk into our school. Those of you who have been in the front of the building have seen this. It's kind of the motto that runs through everything that we do, is having pride in your school. This is new this year. Teachers were able to nominate a night of the month. And so we have two freshmen, 2 sophomores, 2 juniors, and 2 seniors who were nominated. And this is right in the cafeteria, so everyone can see it every day. This went up a couple weeks ago, again, nominated by teachers. And these are not kids who are necessarily always winning awards or involved in everything, but were chosen by their teachers. Sorry. If I hit it once, it's going like 4 times. Sorry. So I wanted to show you one closer up. So her favorite color, her favorite food, and things like that, just getting to know one of our Nights of the Month really well. Danielle, she's a freshman. She walked into the cafeteria the day I happened to be standing there, and she was like, what is all this? So just recognizing our kids for how great they are and for all the things that they do. And then the data that the PRIDE PLC uses is tracking our discipline data. Is there, are there trends to that? Are there things that we need to be doing differently? Are positive behavior supports working or not working? We do student climate surveys 2 times a year, so mid-year and at the end of the year, to see how the kids think things are going in the building, and then teacher feedback as well. And then all of this ties together to our building improvement plan. I just listed 2 of the goals that we have in the building this year. Obviously, one of the goals at any high school is to make sure kids are college and career ready. and that they meet graduation requirements. 3 of our PLCs are working just on that building goal. So our college and career readiness, our technology and assessment, and our response to intervention team all have to be working towards this goal this year. And then, again, every building is going to look to improve student achievement, and specifically areas of reading and math. So we have 3 PLCs that their work is directly tied to this building goal. Our response to intervention group, our instructional practices group, and our technology and assessment group. So all of those groups are working toward this building goal as well. And then last year, at the end of the year, just to see if teachers felt as if PLCs were working, if they were beneficial, if they felt like it was impacting them in a professional way, we gave a survey at the end of the year to our teachers. And so you can see the question was, PLCs are beneficial for staff collaboration on building initiatives. And we gave them a range from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And you can see the results there. We also asked, is it an effective use of faculty meeting time to work on building initiatives? Generally, most people agreed that it was. And then instead of just sitting in the auditorium grading papers or on your phone, we asked if they felt engaged and if they were an active participant in their PLC. And you can see that most people felt they were engaged and active in their PLCs last year. So we will give the same sort of survey again this year to make sure that what we're doing is beneficial to the teachers and their collegiality, for sure. So here are my faculty meetings now. Everyone is not sleeping and not yawning and not just listening to me talk. Everyone's working together and has a role to play instead of just spending that hour going over what I could have emailed them. We're trying to work on making sure teachers have that collaborative community to work together with. So, questions?
On your previous slide that said there's a small portion that strongly disagrees, and knowing how many people involved, you probably know who that is.
We do. And I purposely did not ask them to put their names on it so that we could get honest feedback. But
that's fine.
Yeah, there's probably people who you can pick are not engaged in anything that we ask them to do. Sure.
You're keeping track of 23-year-olds. Your reference to the people that are out 5 years. How is that coming along? Did your predecessor leave a good system in place to track those graduates?
Yeah, we get our 5-year data report each year, so we can see kids who are out. So you have to with every
How
survey.
do you track them though? I mean, they disappear and disperse into the.
So that's what I was going to bring up. You have to consider that the kids who are filling out the survey might be the ones who you A, can track down, but B, who might still be at home and not away at school or
Right.
not have moved somewhere else. So you kind of consider how the data might be skewed a little bit with that. But it is interesting to read because
Sure.
they do give you good feedback. What classes, did you feel you're benefiting most from, things like that. And I think any survey can provide you some good insight. But you have to consider that the kids who fill it out and turn it in are probably either really pleased with where they are 5 years out of high school or really displeased. So.
Well, and it's with technology, it's probably getting easier every year to keep track of people from 5 years ago.
Right.
So, okay, well, thank you for the presentation. I don't know if the other board
I
members.
got a question.
Sure.
Comment. It looked like your state report card scores were improved. I don't remember what they were last year because I wasn't on the board last year, but they looked pretty good. Give me your honest assessment of the difference, plus or minus, that the uniform policy makes over at Northwest.
On my state report card?
No, just on the whole school environment with discipline, the kids' pride in the school, just the whole, if you can just sum it up, what your feelings are from what you see with the uniform policy affecting the school in a positive way or a negative way.
So that's a leading question. I was going to say in a positive way. I think just with any school dress code at any high school, you're going to have to monitor it. You're going to have to make sure that kids are following the rules. So we have the same dress code violations as someone who doesn't have a uniform policy or doesn't have a stricter dress code policy. So it's always going to be how much it's enforced and how well you make sure that students are abiding by it. That's going to be important. clearly there's people who feel one way or another. I wouldn't say it impacts the school in a positive or negative way, because we have kids who have dress code violations every day, just like every high school would. And I've been in both high schools, so you have dress code violations either way.
Well, he talked about a leading question. That was about as neutral of an answer as you could have given.
Yeah, it
But
just doesn't really have to do with my PLCs, but I would be happy to talk about it with you.
But, well, it was, we're talking about Northwest High School here, and it's just something that I wanted to hear. I mean, could ask Woolen, but, you're the principal now, and just wanted to see if, having been in other schools, if you see any difference, because it does seem to me that the report cards are improving at Northwest High School from what they were, and I'm trying to, find the correlation why they're improving. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things, but I was wondering if that was maybe a little piece of the puzzle on why the report cards are showing improvement.
So I'm not sure the report card would lead into, I don't think the report card scores are affected one way or another by uniforms or not. Basically, I think that discipline might be affected, but in terms of the report card, it's all instructional practices and what you're putting in place to make sure your kids are ready for tests and making sure they're ready to graduate, those types of things. Okay. So if it was going to impact something, it might be discipline over state report card indicators or testing.
Yeah. Okay.
Just in my opinion.
All right, well, thank you.
Sure.
We're only a month into this, well, a little more than a month now into this school year, about 6 weeks in, and we approved a calendar change allowing for every other Wednesday, teacher time. So you've probably only had about 3 or 4 of those sessions so far, but do you see that making a difference so far? Do you think or do you think it's too early to tell, just the way we broke up the professional development times?
So we've had 2 so far, and I know that the teachers are really appreciative of the time being kind of carved out in their day. It is really important. So some teachers have common plan time. If you're on a biology team, for example, you would. But, my gym teachers, for example, don't have the same plan time. So it's a great use of time for them during that TBT time to be able to meet together. Otherwise, they wouldn't have time to talk about instruction. They wouldn't have time to talk about data, curriculum, things like that. So it's been extremely helpful that time has been set aside for them to do so. They just wouldn't have time otherwise. So if you're not on a team that has common plan at the high school, you wouldn't have time to sit down and do that. So far, the 2 sessions we've had have gone really well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
First of all, appreciate your honesty on whether there's impact or not on student learning versus uniforms. But put that aside, as far as, I think that's a great idea, doing something with the juniors for the career days and for the college days, because you're right, so many of them, all of a sudden it's senior year and they really don't have a clue what they want to do, and with early admissions and so on and so forth. So did you do that last year for the juniors? Or is that new this year?
We did a mini college thing with them last year. We just want to expand on that because like you said, and they have the time in the summer between their junior and senior year to actually go visit some of these places.
Right.
Once you start senior year, it makes it hard. You'd have to take off school, things like that. So we're trying to get them thinking about it in spring of junior year. So we did a mini version, but we're working to expand on that moving forward because they're just as important as those seniors making decisions.
Sure.
And we don't want them to get to spring of their senior year and say, I have no idea.
Right.
And I didn't take advantage of, the summer college visits you can make and things like that. And there's so many free, sorry, I could go on forever about this, but there's so many free things that parents can take their students to in the summer for juniors that we just have to get word out to people so that they're not waiting, like you said, until it's too late.
And I think, so oftentimes kids will say, oh, I want to go to a big college, or oh, I want to go to a small college. But in reality, they've never set foot on a campus to even know.
Right.
Or I want to go far away, or I don't. But to be able to go and visit different ones to compare, I think is so important.
And we do something over the summer in collaboration with Coleraine that it's free to the kids. They just have to sign up and get permission from their parents. We put them on a bus, and one goes to Northern Kentucky, one goes to UC, and one goes to Miami.
That's
and they show up in the summer, and through the career grant, we put them on a bus, and all the colleges feed them, so they really have to bring nothing with them, but they for the parent who might not be able to get their
Sure.
student to UC or Northern Kentucky, you can get on the bus and go, and they do a whole campus tour, and the admissions person meets with them and says, here's what you need to get in here. And we open it to sophomores, juniors, and seniors.
That's awesome.
So as long as they have parent permission, we do 3 different trips over the summer. Coleraine and Northwest kids together get to go visit colleges, so.
Great, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure, thank you.
Thank you for your report. Our next item is special report, Dr. Jackson.
Yes, we have the Student Senate here from Northwest High School. It's going to report on the recent field trip. Come on up.
I'm Sam Schoen. I'm student vice president.
I'm Nikki Stagler. I'm corresponding secretary.
I'm Carly Gurney, and I'm the president.
I'm Min Nguyen. I'm treasurer. In addition to what I do at Northwest Community, I also serve as staff member for the middle level and senior high programs of the Ohio Association of Student Councils. What the Ohio Association of Student Councils is, it's a statewide leadership organization designed for high school and middle level students to learn, improve, and practice different aspects of leadership. The organization hosts several events throughout the year, including State Conference, which we attended last year. State Conference is basically a board meeting for the OASC Student and Adult Executive Board, plus all its member schools. In addition to the meeting, it also allows time for student-led workshops where students would go and learn from other students leading those workshops, and the State Conference also has an award ceremony to award member schools, individuals, and advisors for outstanding leadership qualities and achievements.
So we just want to say thank you guys for letting us go on this trip, because honestly it taught us a lot about leadership. We brought all the ideas back to our student senate and also our freshman mentor program. Some of the activities that we did with the staff members and the students at this workshop we brought back to our freshmen, and they seem to like them. So I hope we continue to do that. And also with all of our sporting teams, our United Knights team, we do a lot of community service. We brought those ideas back, and we want to keep going back so we can keep improving those ideas and further go with them. So we just want to thank you guys. And in addition to going up there, we also recognized the Advisor of the Year, Miss Patty Daly. So it was a really big thing for her, and we were just glad to be there in support for her because she was awesome. And now we have Miss Young, who's our current advisor, and she's also awesome. So we just really hope to go back and bring more leadership qualities back to Northwest High School.
Thank you.
Can you remind me again, where was it last year?
It was in Port Clinton, Ohio.
Do you know where it's going to be for this year?
Wellington.
Well, I just want to thank you all for coming and just to reiterate how important it is to continue your leadership. I know Mr. Gutzel and I both were on Northwest Senate with Patty Daly just a few years ago. And Jim was actually the treasurer as well for the Senate. So got to do a lot of worthwhile things. If you ever have an opportunity to go to a national convention, it's awesome. I know both of us got to attend those as well, and it's pretty neat to meet kids from all over the country. So good luck with your year, and hopefully we'll see you next year too. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
If I could have you in the hallway.
Our next item is report from employee organizations. Is there anyone here from the certificated or licensed employee group that would like to speak? Hearing none. Report from classified employee organizations. Seeing no one. Report from school-related organizations. There are none. Community comments. I have one card from Jim Rowan, who was our Coleraine Township Administrator. Please make sure your mic's on, Mr. Rowan. I'd like to speak about issue 30, which is on the ballot next month.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I take it the mic is on.
If it's red, it's on.
Great, thank
Okay.
you. Yes, I just want to talk briefly about issue 30. This brochure should be arriving in mailboxes throughout the community, if not already, within the next week or so. It's an attempt to educate the community on what issue 30 is about. It's a little different than a traditional tax issue of any sort. In this, we will actually be asking the community to consider approving a resolution and contract to create a joint economic development zone, also known as a JEDZ, within the Colerain corridor. And I'd just like to hit a couple points in case you would have questions or others would have questions, because it's not a real simple issue to understand. The proposed township JEDZ will run along Colerain Avenue from Struble, including Rumpke, all the way south to Galbraith on the north side, and any commercial property on the intersecting streets. And the one thing about the JED zone, it has to be contiguous commercial property. So if you can just imagine, there's a map on the back of the brochure that kind of highlights the zigzag approach all the way from north to south. Our JEDZ is very similar to what Sycamore Township did a little over a year ago, but they actually proposed 3 JEDZs within their community. We're just proposing for 1. The reason for our JEDZ, while you can make the legislation as broad as you would like to include salaries of public safety employees, administration, zoning, public works, we chose to be very specific in that we have a need to address our public infrastructure within Colerain. Primarily our streets, our curbs, our gutters, our sidewalks, and our neighborhoods. So we want to be very focused with the proposed JEDZ and an attempt to generate some dollars to fix our streets. The last road levy that we had before the community failed in 2001, and since that time we have depended heavily on our general fund to fund our street program. With the budget cuts of 2011 removing $1.5 million from our general fund budget, we no longer have funding to repair streets. So we are at a crossroads as it comes to dealing with how we're going to address our public infrastructure. So what attracted us to consider the JEDZ versus a property tax road levy is the fact that we can structure a JEDZ to have little or minimal impact on our residents and our businesses. A JEDZ is very much like a municipal income tax. If you live in a city and you vote for an income tax, you tax the residents and the businesses within that city. Ours differs a little bit in that while the residents and the businesses will pay the 1% earning tax, if you work in that zone. If you do not work in that zone, you are not impacted by this JEDZ whatsoever. But if you work in that Colerain corridor, and you, as a resident and a business, you'll pay the 1% tax. But what our Joint Economic Development Council chose to do as part of our legislation is at the end of the year, if you are a resident of Colerain or a business owner in Colerain, you can apply for a grant back to get a check equal to 100% of what you paid. The goal here is not to harm our residents and businesses any further with additional taxation. Some have referred this legislation as being an unfair tax. If you consider taxing a non-resident that comes in and utilizes our services every day, whether it's public safety or drives our roads, I will give that as a possibility. My major concern as the administrator of Colerain is to advocate for the resident and the business and to try to generate a way to address our crumbling infrastructure without additional taxes on our residents. So what you will see on this ballot, unlike a traditional tax issue, is a for or against question. And what you will be asked, or what the community will be asked to do, is either vote for the resolution and contract, which will authorize the JEDZ, or against the resolution and contract, which will deny the JEDZ. We have one opportunity with this JEDZ for legislation has changed. We were in the middle of moving forward with this JEDZ legislation when the state legislature changed the rules, which caused us to create the Economic Development Council and ultimately approved our plan. The partnership is with the city of Harrison. They gave us the most economic cost to collect the tax on our behalf and the sharing of revenue. They get 8.5%, which was lower than any other municipality. By law, we are not allowed to collect the tax because we are a township, so we had to partner with another municipality. We're optimistic that we can get our message out and hopefully be able to pass issue 30. If not, the board's going to have some very difficult decisions to make. I know that there doesn't appear to be a climate to go back and ask for more property taxes. We don't want to do that. We want to protect our residents, but at the same time, we have a need to address our crumbling streets. So there are other areas that, if required or if we have to, we'll probably take a look at. Our park systems, our community center, some of those non-essential public services, we may have to look at making additional reductions if we're not successful. But we hope to be able to get our message out between now and November 4th. And like I said, it's a very complicated message because it's not very clear. People don't understand, well, why are you even taxing me? Why not just don't tax me? Why are you giving me my money back? Well, the law says we have to tax everybody, but there's a unique feature about a JEDZ that allows our Colerain Improvement Corporation to give that money back in the form of a grant. So I just wanted to come this evening and just give you some insight on what Issue 30 is about, and if you have questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Jim, I do have a question. What kind of money do you think are you going to bring in if this passes?
We estimated in our preliminary conservative estimates, we actually worked with the Hamilton County Development Group to estimate the earnings tax, and we were estimating to generate approximately $1 million a year. We have identified between 1.5 and 2.5 in need to really truly get ahead of the curve with our streets. We felt in order to get to that level, we would have had to ask for a 2% earnings tax, and we just did not feel that that was the right thing to do. So we're asking the community to meet us halfway. This is a 1%, will allow us to start to inject some money into our streets, at the same time holding them harmless.
And how long does this, if this passes, this JEDZ, how long does it last?
It's a 40-year JEDZ with 3 10-year term renewals. And, you know, the question has also been asked, well, what's going to keep you from raising that 1% to a 2%? Or what's going to keep you from canceling the grant and not giving us our money back? Well, one of the unique features when the legislation passed and we had to create this Joint Economic Development Council, it was represented by a member of the community business, a member of the business community, the county auditor, and then we had to have our top 3 businesses, which was Rumpke, I believe it was Meijer, and Walmart ultimately served on that council. That council voted 6-4, 0 against, and 1 abstention to approve the plan. When they approve that plan, that pretty much locks us in, and we cannot deviate from that plan. If we spend the money outside that plan, it takes 2 citizens to come forward, challenge the plan, and the JEDZ is discontinued. So our commitment is we're going to follow the plan, inject the money into public infrastructure, and really hope to invest more in this community. Yes, sir.
Jim, you said that unlike Sycamore Township with the big brouhaha over there on Kenwood Road with all those businesses, I live in Greene, so I don't have a dog in this fight, but I do rounds at a nursing home that's owned by the people who are building the new one.
Okay.
And I know there was an issue. So in fact, this isn't the first and only. This is now the second. And is it the same rate over there?
Actually, this is the first JEDZ. There's also JED-D legislation,
Okay.
which is different. You can actually work at an agreement with a developer to agree to do this, and that was part of the nursing home. So it's a development agreement that allowed for the collection of that joint economic development district versus a zone.
Is it a 1%?
I believe it's a 1%, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And we're partnering with the city of Cheviot on that particular.
Yeah, I thought it was a different city, and that's why that Harrison, because I thought the rule was it had to be, I always thought it had to be one adjoining the city or the township, but you know, I mean, like North College Hill or like Forest Park or something. But
Sure.
but I was just curious about that because the people at the home that I go to are worried they're going to close that home and move everybody over here, and I said no, it's too far away.
And currently, the joint economic development districts are still permissible under law, although there's some question as to how long those are going to remain as well.
So would a person, I don't think it'll affect any of our employees because none of our buildings are contiguous to a business on Colerain Avenue. There's residential property, for instance, between Colerain High School and Colerain Avenue, so that wouldn't affect.
That's
It
correct.
wouldn't affect this building, even though we have a business right behind us because it's not south of Galbraith Road.
That's correct.
But, so as an employee of one of the businesses in the zone, would they file a City of Harrison income tax form, or how would they?
If you are an employee within the zone, then that employer would be required to take out the 1% earnings tax, submit that to the City of Harrison. And I believe they use RETA, the Regional Income Tax Authority out of, I think it's a Cleveland area somewhere, to actually collect that tax. And then at the end of the year, if they're a resident of this community, they will file a single-page grant application with our Community Improvement Corporation. Once it's validated through the income tax records that that tax was paid, a check will be sent back to that resident or business to give them back 100% of what they paid.
And Harrison pays all the administrative costs out of their 10%, so the 90% goes to Colerain Township trustees without any administrative
That's correct.
cost.
I think the 8.5% is Harrison's cut, and there's a 1.5% administration fee that's part of that 90-10 split.
I think we've all heard about it. Thank you for the clarification. Did anybody have any other comments on it? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like. I see you heading for the door. Don't leave.
He was treasurer at Princeton before he was administrator in Colerain. He's probably had his fill of school board meetings.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Ours are better than theirs.
You're right, he was Talent as well.
Moving right along, our next item is the financial reports of the treasurer.
Yes, we have several reports for the month of August. I believe Larry McDonough did email. That's a salesman from a textbook company. I don't know why. He retired 3 years ago. Larry McDonough, I believe, emailed the board, let them know that the August bank statement wasn't quite ready, so these are the other reports for the board to consider. So the treasurer and superintendent recommend the Board of Education approve the financial reports as listed.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Chris? The motion carries 5-0. Our next item is certificated licensed personnel retirements and resignations. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, we have 5 certificated resignations, 1 title tutor resignation, 1 ESL tutor procedural resignation, 9 home instructor procedural resignations, 1 extra duty resignation, and 10 extra duty procedural resignations. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the certificated licensed personnel retirements and resignations as listed.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Chris, please call for a vote. The motion carries 5-0. Our next item is a classified personnel item.
Yes, we have 3 classified resignations, and we have several classified procedural resignations. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the classified retirements and resignations as listed.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Chris, please call for a vote. The motion carries 5-0. The next item is a certificated licensed personnel item. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, on this list we have 1 ESL tutor, 9 home instructors, 13 extra duty contracts, 5 volunteer coaches, and a resolution to hire 10 non-licensed coaches. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the certificated licensed personnel items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Chris, please call for a vote. The motion carries 5-0. Our next item is a certificated licensed personnel item. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, this is the athletic event worker salary schedule. If you remember back a few months ago, we used to pay the event workers through a voucher system. They would turn it into a voucher, and then they would get paid for that, and it wasn't run through payroll. IRS regulations changed that, and we actually have to hire all the event workers, and we run it through payroll and withhold taxes, etc. What happened since this was a new process, a few of the jobs that job types that we have got left off the salary schedule. So there were some new ones that were added. Security, team host, scoreboard lot, and reserved seats were all added to this list at $12.50 an hour. So the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the athletic event worker salary schedule as listed.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question. The IRS regulation that changed, was that as a result of the Affordable Care Act, or was that a different issue that came up?
No, that's a different issue. Yeah.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, please, Chris, please call for a vote. The motion carries 5-0. Our next item is classified personnel item.
Yes, we have 9 initial appointments, and we have several classified substitutes. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the classified personnel items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Chris, please call for a vote. The motion carries 5-0. Our next item is community comments and questions. Is there a member of the audience that has a question or comment about anything that was discussed on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Board member comments. Mr. Harlow.
I do not have anything.
Thank you. Mr. Detzel.
No comments tonight, Dan.
Mr. Heater.
Nothing, Dan.
Mrs. Detzel.
Nothing.
I was invited to, and I did attend, the Colerain Volleyball Chili Tasting Contest at Colerain High School Saturday night for $5. You got a little 2-ounce souffle cup of chili, and there was 10 wonderful entrants, and I gave them all a fair review, and the one I chose belonged to the one who made the best chili. All the parents were well represented. So with no other comments, we'll move on to the next item. Executive session. Dr. Jackson.
Yes, the summary is for the board to approve a motion to move into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and to conference with an attorney concerning disputes that are the subject of a pending or imminent court action. So the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Dan, I think we've been sort of in the mode of telling the audience if there's going to be any action or anything after the executive session.
I don't believe there will be no action after this executive session. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dieters. So it's been moved and seconded. Chris, please call for a vote. And the motion carries 5-0. We will come back into this room to adjourn the meeting only when we are finished. So thank you all for coming.
We'll go down to the conference room.